Hey guys, Level Cap here with Devlog number 16 for a space game that my buddy Rich and I are making on Unreal Engine 5 with quite a bit of help from the community at this point. We started development in January of this year, and I'm excited to show off this new Battlecruiser that we just got into the game. I've been noodling around with the white box model of this one for a while, and I decided to just kind of make a push towards getting some textures on it and getting it in game so we could test out large ship combat. Now it is missing its main weapon, which I'm excited about, but don't want to give away the surprise on what that is quite yet. However, it does have 8 Sea-Wiz turrets and 8 missile pods, which means once we limit the missile amount that you can fire, it should be able to fire about 32 in a single volley. And getting this ship into the game is sort of twofold. Right now we're working on a movement combat demo that will take place in a specific map layout so we can really test out the combat and movement mechanics of the game and see if it's fun. And this will be one of the main bad guys that you fight. But the other purpose is to just see how large-scale ships perform. It's cool getting into the game and giving this more sluggish turn rates and stuff like that to make it feel like it has a lot more mass to it. And it changes the way that you want to fly around. The small ships are fun and fast and agile, and you can dodge and weave asteroids. With this ship, you can accelerate pretty fast, which is nice because I gave it 7 engines, and the game actually gives each engine Newtonian force, so the more engines you have, the faster the ship will go. But once you're going fast, it's not that maneuverable, and it's slow to turn around and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to be going fast into an asteroid field with this. You will hit one and explode or take massive damage. So it's cool to see the difference between the small ships and the big ships already. And it's just giving me tons of ideas about how to make the gameplay more dynamic and interesting as you go between small and large ships. What do you prefer? I don't want to lock people into a gameplay progression where they feel like they have to constantly upgrade to bigger and bigger ships. I want to give players the options to stick with cruisers or destroyers if they really prefer that type of gameplay. Now, I was also quite pleased with the workflow for our ships. Right now, we model it out in Blender. I place the sockets in manually where turrets and cargo bays and engines need to connect. We export the FBX into the engine with all the textures and everything. And then in engine, Rich developed a system where basically we select the sockets from a little list and it applies all the turrets and all the components as we need, which is not only very fast, but it's going to be the same system that we use for upgrading ships down the road, where you want to switch out your main turrets for the upgraded version or a different type of turret. It'll be the same socket system here. Rich spent a long time developing our modular ship layout, and he actually added a new layer to it recently, which is the names and logos and whole numbers that you'll see on the sides of ships now. So basically, when you spawn in an enemy ship or a friendly ship, it's going to be assigned a name and a whole number and a logo, depending on the properties we give that ship. But we can have the names randomly selected from a large list, and this is going to give ships a lot more personality when you run into them in the verse. Also, shout out to Uriah, who's helped us quite a bit with this game. He made this special texture for the sides of ships that can apply names and decals, because it's actually not that simple. It's a pretty loaded process, which I've talked about in a previous devlog. But again, credit where credit is due. Thank you again, Uriah, for developing that for us. And on the subject of our collaborators, if you actually hop over to our Discord, it's been updated with a new collaborator section, so you can see who has been working on the game, what things they've done, and you can also get a link to any of their portfolios or ArtStation stuff. We also have a new lore section on there where we're going to start getting into the lores, the naming, the story behind the game. There's a little bit of a spoiler disclaimer once you get in there, so if you don't want to know stuff, it'll warn you before you start joining the lore discussion. But we've got that up on the Discord now. Check it out. There's a link in the video description. Now, we also have a couple more cool updated ship features. Engines can now be disabled, and that will be represented visually with the engines not engaging, and your acceleration will be reduced based on the amount of engines that you have left. So I'm excited about this system. It's still kind of early, but we're going to tweak it a bunch to make it work nicely for combat. We now have a way to make the game slow-mo while we're playing it. Rich added that in. Apparently it was pretty easy to do, and it's mostly right now being used for testing, and it lets us slow the game down and see why our countermeasures aren't impacting missiles or something like that. And it's pretty useful for bug hunting, actually, since a lot of the combat in our game happens so quickly. We don't always know why things aren't happening the way they should be, and watching it in super slow-mo usually gives us the answers. Now, one of the main systems in our game, the radar, is going to be extensively useful throughout the game for telling you where enemy ship positions are and all that stuff. However, it's quite complicated in terms of the way it needs to work and all the different features and functions that are tied into it. It doesn't seem apparent at first, but I'm going to let Rich get into the details of that because he's been working on it for quite a while now.
Over the past couple weeks, I've been working on a big radar overhaul. We have some new things that we want to do with radar and more complicated things. Now that I'm a lot more comfortable working in Unreal, time to start putting more features in to give us the radar we really want. One of the things we're building is a radar signature system, also known as a radar cross-section. And that basically just means how detectable is something on someone else's radar. So in the game, a signature is just going to be a big ring around something. And basically when that ring touches a radar, then that radar can see whatever was generating that ring. The patrol ship has a pink ring around it representing its signature. And if you look at the radar, you notice that that patrol ship is not showing up on my radar. As that signature gets closer, as soon as my ship or my radar crosses into that signature, now the patrol ship showed up on my radar. When I leave that signature, the patrol ship's gone. The plan is for anything that can show up in the radar to have a signature. So that includes ships, space stations, nav beacons, bullets, missiles, mines, with one exception being asteroids, because those are mostly just landscape. Another thing that's going to happen with signatures is the signature is going to change based on what something is doing. So for example, my ship could increase its signature by starting to fire weapons or engage its thrusters. The ship could shrink its signature or get rid of its signature entirely, possibly by cutting all engines and reducing power usage, things like that. This can be used in stealth situations to sort of drift through space past something that you don't want seeing you. And there's probably some other fun game mechanics we can use with signatures. Another thing I'm working on is how the radar looks. Just a small example is the circles changing to gradients. I was using some functions to draw circles, but I needed something fancier because we wanted these gradients instead. We could use images for these gradient rings, but I decided I think a shader could be used instead and more efficiently. So now we have a way of drawing these gradient rings that's reusable, different sizes, different colors, and it's always going to be the highest quality because it's just using math to figure out each pixel rather than resizing one image. In my previous version, I was also using math to draw these circles, but that was on the CPU, and these shaders have the benefit of moving that computation to the GPU. We want to save the GPU for non-graphical stuff as much as possible.
Now, Rich has also been converting our actors over to using data assets, which means they pull from variable lists, which not only look cleaner and are easy to work with. So we open a variable list and I can adjust the max health, the disable health, lots of other properties of, say, ships or weapons, missiles, what have you. But it also means that I could be working on the data asset file while Rich is working in the blueprint, and our work isn't really overlapping with each other, which is great. So it's a good workflow and just cleanliness update that I'm excited about. Maybe not the most exciting for YouTube, but man, is it nice. Now, one of the major components of our upcoming movement combat demo that we're working towards is building a level for this. And so getting the scale of the level, deciding how many asteroid fields, how dense the asteroid fields are, where the player starts, where the player ultimately needs to get to, how many objectives are going to be along the way. I got into that and started working on all the problems and cool things that we're going to come up with that. Unreal's got some really neat tools to deal with this. One is level instancing, which is fun, where you can basically create a little diorama of sequences that you might want in a level. And then say you want to use that a couple different times in a level, you convert it to a level instance. Now you can update one and it'll update all of them. You can move them around, and they're very efficient. And they'll also work with a new system that is new in Unreal Engine 5 called World Partition. This system is designed to replace level streaming, which is more of a manual process for streaming in assets as you, say, get close to them or need to load a new zone as you're passing through a checkpoint. The world partition system can be more or less automated, where it breaks the world up into grids, and then you just kind of set the proximity and how far away you want to be from something until it loads in. Now, as always, we have a bunch of other things going on in the background, and we're always kind of right on the verge of some cool new features. The radar stuff is definitely something that's going to make a huge impact on how the game is played and how to determine whether our levels are too big or if they're big enough, and how you navigate. Huge amount of learning that's going to come from that system once we get it online. It's going to inform a ton of stuff about the gameplay. And we got some new people coming on board soon that I don't want to talk about just yet, but I'm really excited to see what they can do with the project. I hope you guys enjoyed this devlog. Again, check out our Discord if you want to follow the project more closely. I'm especially excited about the new lore section to have people kind of collaborate in terms of just throwing out names and ideas for the backstories of things. That's going to be kind of a fun process to engage the community with. So I hope you guys enjoyed this devlog. If you want to check out the overall game concept, I have a video here for that. And we also have just the entire devlog playlist that you can watch through if you're more curious about the game. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.